Now you've already won the championship. You just be the
Oh,
best.
6 o'clock.
Player
That was
you
the
can
past
be,
3
and then
minutes.
save your body. Save your body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it's the ego thing. They want to save
sure.
play college football.
Yeah.
And okay.
We are?
Good.
Okay. Nope.
Someone was just telling me about that.
You know what?
So he had fun playing in.
All right, I'm going to call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019 at 6 o'clock PM. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call.
Commissioner Graff. Here. Commissioner Pearden.
Here.
Alderman Kubaki.
Here.
Mayor Shiverani.
Here.
Commissioner Jocks.
Here.
Commissioner Buckmaster.
Here.
Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Planner Chesby-Witowski.
Here.
Thank you. And then statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with open meeting laws on March 29th, 2019.
Thank you, Aaron. And then we have approval of the minutes from March 5th, 2019.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved unanimously. Consent agenda. Let me just read it, or you usually do.
I can read it. Resolution PC 017-2019, approval of a two-lot certified survey map for the Johns property located on Ryan Drive.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is approved unanimously. And then we have new business for consideration. Resolution PC 18, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Crush Wine Bar on Parkland Drive.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. Crush Wine Bar, who's a newer business that located in Muskego in the former Twisted Cork space, is looking at proposing some building improvements, but more specifically some outdoor seating area. So they're proposing an area that will take up a few stalls within the parking lot along the west side of the building for a new kind of patio area that's about 20 by 25 feet in size. It will kind of be contained by a rail system with like a bar top ledge, and it will also then contain some canvas sail awnings over the top of this area to kind of give it some shade and such. The proposal is this outdoor area should be able to hold about 25 people. As part of this, also the request, they're looking at doing some changes to the building. So the applicant noted that they are going to replace some current pedestrian doors and windows with an overhead garage door that will kind of help tie this indoor space to the outdoor space. As well as they are looking at painting some of them. There's some metal awning features that are on the building. They're going to paint those to a silvery gray color. It's also been noted that are going to look at doing siding of kind of the front portion of the building. If you're familiar with this building, kind of the front portion is kind of, you can tell its own little space, and then the back kind of wing of the building, which is mostly where Crush is kind of a separate building that has some different type of brick and other materials. Kind of the front portion of the building, so it'd be the side facing Janesville, the side facing Parkland, and then the little bit of the back that faces the Crush parking lot. They're looking at doing some type of horizontal tannish colored siding there. Right now the building has like a vertical wood siding. So one thing we noted, there were some details about the siding provided, but not a real extensive amount of detail. So the resolution is drafted that, we don't have a problem with the approving of the upgrading material, but we do want to see that it's going to be some kind of quality material, like not just a vinyl or aluminum siding, but something that's a little more of a durable, quality material. And we want to be sure that it does help the aesthetics of the building. So the resolution is drafted to allow staff to review the detailed plans. If you look in your packet, they kind of give a real basic elevation of what it would look like, but if Plan Commission's okay, we would just say at the staff level, we can look at to make sure that it is a quality material and to make sure that it is a clear aesthetic improvement, which we think it will be. Overall, though, no new lighting is proposed. They do show some basic signage that they want to have. They talk about monument signage, and they show some signage on the outdoor seating area. Just like any signage, those will need separate permits, but they are definitely possible. It's good that they show us their intentions here. And no new lighting's proposed now. If lighting is proposed, it just has to follow the city specs and get staff approval. But overall, I think this could be a nice addition to this area. I think will help the business out a lot. Sounds like they've already been doing pretty well, and hopefully this will help them even further into the future, but staff's recommending approval.
Thank you. Is there any questions, comments?
Looks great.
Adam, you said they were going to reside the entire building?
Beside like the front portion of the building. So in the renderings, if you look at the renderings, the parts that show up as red, which they won't be red, they're going to be a tan. But yeah, so the kind of the front part of the part, I would call the southern part, that's more towards Janesville in the corner of Parkland, that's the part that they want to do residing on.
All right.
Do they own the building?
No, they're a tenant. They're working, I think, with the owner on that.
So they wouldn't occupy the entire building?
No, they're already in there, and they're just kind of in the back portion, the portion more so along Parkland. There's two tenants in the front portion closer to Janesville that have leases currently.
I have a question. Adam, did they submit an example of what the overhead door would be? Or
There is,
not?
I don't think specifics. They note like I think it's like a glass garage door. This plan kind of shows it here. The owner of the wine bar is here if he can maybe lend any comment, but you know, it's kind of this, if you look at the renderings on the screen right now, this kind of portion here is where that garage door will be. They kind of show what they noted. You can kind of, it's kind of hard to see in some of the colored renderings exactly, but it would kind of be in this general portion of the building. Here's where they're looking at it.
Great question.
Thanks.
We've contracted with Rinderly Door out of Waukesha to help us with the garage door. For those of you who don't know, Mike Fitzgerald, our landlord, passed away last Wednesday. So we will be dealing with Jill Fitzgerald, his wife, and Lisa Lamb, and Dan, his son-in-law, to be very soon. Sorry to have informed you of that if you didn't know before now, but we will miss him. He was one of the reasons why we chose Muskego for our location, because he made this possible. The door, although we initially thought it would be an overhead door, we now think it'll be a folding door from side to side. And the reason why is we have a projection system where the overhead door would eliminate the ability to project on the south wall.
Okay.
So
But is the intent to be full glass, or would it be?
at this point in time, it will be full glass. That's our intent, so that we can see all the way through.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I saw on the elevation there that it looked more like an industrial door, which I guess I'd have some reservations about that type of application in this location, but.
Well, interestingly enough, too, you know, we allow people to write on the bathroom walls on our glass boards. And somebody the other night came into the bar and wrote in the girls' bathroom, "To industrial, we want a small town feel." And my business partner, Judy, who designed it, said, "Yeah, it's industrial," which is what we were looking for.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from.
All right. Well, you've answered my question, so.
Okay, no others? I think it looks lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved unanimously. Resolution PC 19, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Blue Line Auto Sales and Service on Saturn Drive.
Move to approve?
Second.
And Adam.
Thank you. Give me 1 second here just to get it out. So the applicant in this scenario, Blue Line Auto Sales, is looking at locating to a multi-tenant building in our business park right across the road off of Saturn Drive. This building houses numerous different businesses right now. It's pretty much on the corner of Saturn and Racine. And the north would be the northwest corner. What they're looking at doing is using one of the spaces to do auto sales. And a lot of the auto sales, and this is something we're seeing more and more of, a lot of the, especially the, smaller dealerships, not the big nationwide things, are starting a lot with internet-based business. So a lot of their customers, they find on the internet or people they know, and then they may go to an auction, purchase a car for them. Doesn't mean they can't still have a lot or show cars, but that's a lot of things, a big trend that we've seen as a city. So what they're looking at doing here is leasing this space. They will have 3 stalls identified that are specifically identified for sales cars out front. The owner notes that they'll all be in good condition, no junk vehicles, no wrecked vehicles, and then they'll have 2 stalls dedicated for customer parking, and then employee parking happens on the east side of the building. The only reason really we're in front of Plan Commission is because the zoning code is a little bit weird, and we realized, I think with the code update, there was something that kind of got missed where the zoning code is tiered in the sense that we allow auto sales and service are not as intensive a use as auto repair. And I think people know like auto body repair. Body repair can be a little more messy and you might deal with junk vehicles. So anywhere in our code, else in the code, wherever it allows auto body shops and stuff like that, it always allows sales and service because that's a less intensive type of use. Well, in the industrial zoning, it doesn't talk about that. So knowing the past code that was there and knowing the intention of the ordinance, how it's tiered, we just kind of wanted to make sure the Plan Commission was comfortable and aware of that. It's something that the city has approved other uses like this in the M2 before. And it's something that as we do future code updates, we look to kind of just clarify in the code. But if we're allowing the most intense type of auto use, which they're not even asking for, there should be no reason we wouldn't allow this type of use as an allowed use by right. But in general, it should be a very neat business. We have things noted in the resolution that the signage on the vehicles has to be only really hanging from hanging from the rearview mirror or any kind of state mandated postings. They must have like the window sticker. That's something similar we've done for our other auto dealerships in the city. It's noted that they are allowed to have the 3 cars overnight outside, but the owner may choose to move them indoors, but if they keep them outside, that is allowable for those 3 sale vehicles. There's no other changes to the building when it comes to the exterior of the building. Any type of, if there are any kind of parts they have to swap out from an inspection or something, it's noted they have to stay inside or be part of an improved outdoor enclosure. They can't be stored on site. But staff is recommending approval. Really not anything out of the ordinary what's there. The most that you'll see is 3 additional cars parked there that may not have been there before.
Thank you, Adam. Good explanation. Any questions, comments?
Is there an overhead door at the rear? Is that?
I believe there is, right? Yeah, and I think that's how this is set up. Kind of a lot of these spaces, some of them are unbuilt, some of them have a little office in the front with more of a warehouse kind of feature in the back, and a lot of overhead doors in the back. Then.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's approved unanimously. And then we have Resolution PC 20, 2019, approval of a metal accessory structure for Dale Enders located on Field Drive. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And Adam?
Thanks, Mayor. Let's get a drawing up here. So the request here, as we know, when a building is proposed to be steel, metal, material, we take it to Plan Commission for architectural review. The building proposed on this lot is a little over 2,700 square feet, 68 by 40. It's nearing maxing out what's allowable on the site, but is within the allowed size limit. And the Plan Commission, has many reasons why they can or historically have granted waivers, but a big one is if areas are found to be more rural in nature, if it's found that the building really isn't super visible from a lot of public property, those are all different things that the Plan Commission usually has granted waivers for. In this scenario, the owner's proposing, the colors come across as more greens, but if you read in the supplement, we actually provided color samples are more chocolate and browns and bronze, which do match colors of the home. The house is like a reddish brownish brick with some brown wood, so they're proposing colors that are similar to that of the home. This property is pretty unique in the sense that this was divided back in the day when we allowed very narrow accessed flag lots. So the location of the building is actually over 1,000 feet from the public road. It's actually behind 2 other lots. So from the road, you could never see this building if you even tried. You could possibly see it from some neighboring properties, but a handful of the neighboring properties have pole buildings also. So we don't really think this should by any means stand out negatively in the neighborhood. They are proposing some decorative features. They're showing overhangs that match the overhangs in the house. They're showing some wainscoting just to give a little bit of design and pizzazz to it rather than just a completely flat plain building, as well as some pedestrian doors and windows. So staff was recommending approval, and in the resolution, we have some of the normal things like can't be used for business, must have a concrete floor, colors must be similar to the home, just to give extra protection to the city.
I don't think you're ever gonna see this.
No.
No, you won't. You will
I don't
not.
know what view you can ever see this.
So no other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved unanimously. And then we have Resolution PC 21, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for D&K Seasonal Services LLC on Challenger Drive.
To approve?
Second.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So this proposal is actually just across the street from that Blue Line Auto Sales we just saw. There's a couple buildings in that area that are very similar in nature, where they have kind of an office, retail kind of storefront, and then have a warehousing, larger open space in the back. So in this location, D&K Seasonal Services is looking at locating here as their new location. They deal with landscaping, snow removal, and items like that, landscape type features. What they're looking at doing is using the front of the building, the kind of the retail area, for like a showroom where they can display different products that they sell, maybe some examples of retaining walls, things like that, where people can come in and maybe even buy some equipment for landscaping, but also more so pick out options if they want to go with a retaining wall or something like that. And then the back of the building, interior of the back, would be used for equipment and trucks and products and things like that that they would have. The thing that's a little bit unique about this that really kicks it into Plan Commission realm is the idea that they do want to have outdoor display. We have areas in our park that have outdoor parking, outdoor display, but it's something the Planning Commission typically has oversight on and wants to make sure it's done in a neat, tasteful manner. This property, if you've looked at it, or if you look at the aerial photo that's provided in the packet, this is kind of like almost like an alleyway behind this building and the building behind it. And those two alleyways are definitely visible from Saturn Drive. So as you drive down Saturn right off of Racine, you can see into this corridor pretty clear. Now, that's not necessarily problematic as long as things are kept neat and orderly. And, if there's a truck or two that are small back there, dumpster, it's usually not a big concern. But in this scenario, the owner does want to have some bins for bulk product. It's something we don't really see an issue with as long as they are done in a neat and orderly way. When you start dealing with bulk product, they can get messy just because of the idea of scooping and shoveling and pushing and loading and unloading. But if they're done in a controlled, neat way, if the bins are kept neat and solid and enclosed, hopefully can alleviate a lot of those concerns. So there's basically 3 bins proposed, a 10 by 40 bin and 2 20 by 40 bins, as well as they're proposing basically like 2 parking stalls that can contain a total of 3 trucks. That would be in those same general areas by the overhead doors. So most equipment would be indoors, but there are a couple trucks that would be parked outdoors in this scenario around those bins. Now, there are some details kind of generally noted about these bins, being that they would be kind of fencing material attached to concrete pillars with some netting on the top. So there is kind of a rendering you'll see in your packet too of what this could roughly look like. They do show a gate on the front of the bins to help keep the material contained. Given the layout in this back of the building that will contain this area, if the Plan Commission thinks it's okay to have storage here, which staff doesn't really have a huge issue with, the biggest thing is neat, orderly, and confined. So the resolution is drafted to potentially allow the outdoor storage bins, but prior to an actual permit being issued to construct them, we would want more of a detailed kind of what they would look like and exactly what they would be built out of. If they're doing what they talk about with some kind of concrete in the inside, surrounded by nicer looking fencing with a gate, I don't think that should be a problem, because that could be housing anything. But if it is just some raw concrete block with no cover and no gate, I think that could start to look pretty messy pretty quick, just because of the visibility of this alleyway. So the resolution states that approving it subject to getting a more detailed plan at the time that the permits would be issued. As far as this bulk area then goes, we do note in the resolution that everything back there must be neat and orderly at all times, and that all products, if anything's tracked out of those bins, that they be properly put back in the bins, and that especially at the end of the day, the whole area is cleaned up, so that when the business closes for the end of the day, it should look nice and clean, and you almost shouldn't notice what's there because of the enclosure. We do note in the resolution, because there just is a chance this could get messy, and hopefully it doesn't, and the owners, said it will be very neat and orderly, and we hope it will be. We do have in the resolution that there would be a 1-year re-review at this, so that we can kind of do a recheck in a year and make sure everything is going as planned. If it isn't, we can adjust then, and if it is, great, and hopefully it's a one-time review. They do show that there would be some signage proposed, just like on other projects, they would need a sign permit, but what they're proposing appears to be doable. We would just need to work out some fine details for the permitting. There are no other changes to the exterior of the building. Any lighting would need city approval. The biggest thing would be, like I said, just making sure that staff approves that outdoor bin before they would install it to make sure it looks good and it completely encloses everything, and then having that 1-year review to make sure that things stay neat and orderly as we hope.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Are there any questions?
For the outside storage, is that, I know Bossy's has something similar,
Yep, correct.
right? Comparatively, bigger, smaller than what they have there? It seems like these would be bigger.
Yeah, and Bossy's, I don't think are quite 40 feet deep in my head. Bossy's was constrained partially by the space between their building. They only had a certain width of paving.
Yep.
And we required that they kept enough of a drive aisle between the building and the bins, so I don't think they're quite as deep. I don't really know the height here, and that's what the detailed plans can show us more. So similar idea. Bossy's they're kind of, Bossy's is kind of up on a hill, so they're a little bit more removed. I think there'll be a little less. I think these might be a little more visible just because of this wide open paved area. It's not like natural landscaping and stuff in the middle of a parking lot, but similar principle.
Yeah. A little bit more removed, but a higher traffic density on Janesville versus what this is.
Yeah.
So the idea would be is that right now there's no material proposed, it's going to be worked out on a staff level?
We're okay with that. If you guys are okay with that, the owner maybe could talk a little bit more about it. Like I said, his plan and write-up kind of talks about like concrete kind of, I think, a lot of these I've seen at landscape yards, they use kind of concrete forms or concrete blocks. And then in this case, it talks about being either covered with or surrounded by or something with fencing. I don't know if you wanted to kind of maybe talk a little bit more about it and just kind of clarify. If Plan Commission would be okay with that, as long as you maybe set some boundaries or something, I don't have a problem with that.
So basically, with the proposal, I'm familiar with Bassy's, and it, usually what a lot of people do when they construct these mulch bins or salt bins, they take these cement barriers and they put them in a big square to contain the mulch. Because of the high traffic area in there and industrial area and keeping things in a neat, orderly fashion, we are presenting a fence-like coverage to keep everything neat and clean and keeping the fences and everything up to snuff and making them look presentable at all times.
Have you thought about what that fence material might be at all?
It's going to be hard composite wood,
Okay.
swing gates with latches.
Okay.
Okay.
So front portion of the building is going to be kind of a retail showroom type of area?
Yeah, so what we plan on doing on the front portion is resell grass seed, landscape fabric. Anybody needs to pick up something for their home, a bag of fertilization. On one portion of the showroom, the actual room is split into two. We plan on putting an office on one side and a showroom on the other, where we display retaining block and stuff like that. And we do a lot of work in the community. So we just wanted to have a place where the residents can actually go view the product.
And the rear of the building is going to be your equipment storage and?
Rear of the building is going to be all lawnmowers and trailers and everything inside.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's approved unanimously. And then we have PC 22, 2019, discussion of a conceptual master plan for the Haren property located on Parker Drive. We need a motion?
We don't need a
Oh,
motion.
no, we don't
It's
need,
just
I
discussion.
apologize, it's just discussion.
Hello.
Hello there.
I'm Brian Wren. Basically, we had figured, we got the 4 lots in there right now off that unimproved road, And then I think it was last year sometime, maybe middle of the summer and stuff, that we got the additional other 3, the lots, I guess it would be 1 through 4 of the second CSM, which included the farm, and then one along the side of my driveway, but on Parker Drive, and then there's 2 other ones in the back of the existing 4-lot CSM that we had. We had those set pretty much in the past as of last year, but the master plan basically to finish out the rest of the farm to get the 4 additional lots as proposed in the concept A there.
Yeah, and to kind of give the plan commission, just to kind of remind, like Brian said, is I think it was about 10, 12 years ago was when the first 4 lots were divided. And those were done under the premise where our code allowed a private gravel driveway as long as in public dedicated land for lots that had a certain number of land divisions that had a certain number of lots or less. And that rule has long since changed, and with those additional 3 lots that Brian mentioned that were approved last year, it was already known at that time that there would be a road. The road would be improved as part of this future additional 3 new lots. So it'd basically be what was approved already, just not recorded yet, was 3 additional building sites, and then the farm was kind of the remnant acreage. The purpose of the concept is really to clarify a master plan. One of the things that our engineering department came up with as part of the review of those 3 lots and the road plan and stuff was the idea of, let's kind of see the full build out. So that way when the road's built, it only has to be built once. You know, we don't have to build it in segments as it costs more to build it and remobilize and everything. So the idea is, let's just get the full plan together, even though it may not be divided all at one time. You know, you can only do so many lots per certified survey map. Let's at least get an idea of the overall plan so that they kind of know how to plan for drainage and the roadways and stormwater area if needed and stuff like that. So there are 2 concepts. Concept A, which is the one that I have on the screen now, and if you go to the second page, is Concept B. Biggest difference, if you read in the write-up between these 2 items here, is there's, you know, the 4 lots that already exist, the 3 that have been approved, and then 4 additional. The really big difference is in those 4 additional, as it relates to a couple of the lots. The way that the lots, I'm going to get my numbers here correct. If you look at the drawing, kind of zoom in, you can see lot numbers. The biggest difference that you look at is how it affects lots 10, 11, or 12. If you zoom in on the drawings, if you look at the drawing, kind of the upper right corner of the drawing, which is actually the southeast corner, but the upper right-hand part of the drawing, those are where lots 10, 11, and 12 are kind of being talked about. The question is, with option A, lot 11, I think, Aaron, lot 11, which is kind of that far corner lot, only contains 45 feet of frontage on the right-of-way, which is allowable by code. But that 45 feet goes all the way back into the lot. And what the code wants to see, what the code asks for, is having it 45 feet of frontage on the cul-de-sac, widening out to 80 feet and having 80 feet go all the way to the back. So with option A, which you see on the screen right now, it's substandard in access width, which means that it still meets the all the proper minimum average widths. It's the access leading back to the lot that ends up being more narrow than the code looks to see. This is something the Plan Commission could grant a waiver for. So this is just conceptual discussion, but the Plan Commission in this scenario can grant a waiver to access width. Now, when you go to option or concept B, and you want to put a B in that same area, when you look at option B, you'll see that back corner lot, again, number 11. The difference here is now it meets that 80-foot access width, so it's a much wider strip, which you would normally see in a land division, going back to the buildable site. So now that lot is compliant, but when you look at lot 10, which is just to the left of it on this drawing, lot 10 then has to sacrifice a little bit of width because of that. In lot 10 then doesn't meet the 250 feet minimum width that the RCE would require, which is what the owner is going to be most likely asking for there. This scenario needs a formal variance. So not just a Plan Commission waiver, which, you know, waiver is pretty informal, where a variance is a lot more harder to get because you have to meet state law definition of hardship. That's what option B is shown here. So the owner is kind of showing these 2 options so he can kind of have some direction to kind of know what's the next step him and his engineers should take as they develop this kind of master plan, which is something the city was asking for. Now, another option that's there, and not that we want the owner to lose a lot, but there's the idea of if one less lot, because as we clearly see, it's a tight fit. If one less lot is added to this area, so instead of 4 additional lots, there's only 3, then all the lots can meet the minimum requirement. So, you can really say that might be an option too. I think what the owner, though, was really looking for is the idea of, what what direction is the planning commission giving him? This is just conceptual, so we're not asking for yes or no's. What we're asking for is comments from the planning commission that can give him some good direction, so he's not spinning his wheels, so he knows which way to go as he develops this master plan further. Because however this master plan gets divided, even though he's not held to that, it's gonna help him plan how to do his road, how to do his grading, how to plan many things with this future division. So, any comments, discussion here at the planning commission would be really helpful.
Adam, how does that I remember when this was all done a long time ago, but this lot 11, how does that wetland affect that, the numbers?
The wetland's still part of the lot, so it still counts as lot acreage, so that doesn't really hinder anything. The lot's big enough and there's enough land outside the wetland area that's kind of a moot point.
I thought I thought in the past we would be flexible with owners that had wetland on their lots and that needed some additional relief to build. I mean,
normally, we try to keep wetlands and outlots. Like, if this was a subdivision, there wouldn't be wetland in the lot. We normally try to keep wetlands and outlots wherever possible.
But in this case, I think we talked that because it's part of the lot, I think we've granted relief in the past for properties that have had wetland on their property versus an outlot. Because I think we've stressed to keep them in the outlots, as you said. But, so.
Yeah, and I think if we've done relief, it may have been more so with like lot configurations or size. I can't think of a specific scenario, but that wouldn't be totally unheard of by any means. Yeah, and on this scenario, those wetlands back there would remain. You'll see that there's a little wetland pocket shown at the end of the cul-de-sac bulb, but I believe that's been approved by the DNR that it was deemed artificial, so that will be kind of a moot point that can be filled. So the only wetland that would be concern of lots is that back corner on the upper right corner of the drawing, and then some of the lots that are in the lower left corner, some of which already exist, there are some wetlands there that would have to be looked at.
And that's really the lot that's the point of concern here, that lot 11.
10 and 11 kind of the bounces back and forth, yep.
But for that option, I mean, do you prefer that option B? I mean, is that what, or do you care?
I would think, like we were talking, I'm here to try to make everything work as best I can, because everything for the 2.75 acres minimum for, is RCE, that everything would comply. I would think to keep the width of that lot 10, which is that narrow one like that, and have the narrower driveway going back there, and everything else would work. And again, like Adam said too, I'm just kind of I'm not even looking to do this right now. I don't care at all right now about this, but for the future, the master, where should waters go and stuff, I'm trying to make everything work in the city. And these being very large lots, not like, half, quarter, or third acre stuff across from high school, that kind of stuff. I mean, there are plenty of places for water to go as it is anyway.
2 and 3/4 acre minimum, so yeah.
RCE is a big, I mean, it's a big one. So, I mean, I personally don't have any issue with granting the waiver in option A, though. I guess it's more for you. I mean, if you want option B, I'd certainly try to go before it. I mean,
the variance is harder to get. No, there's no doubt about that, because even if planning commission were to give a recommendation for option B, the owner has to prove a hardship that doesn't relate to finances, that's unique to his property, no one else is in the cities. So I think that's much harder. I mean, from a standpoint of what's easier to get, easier in the sense of who has more authority or not, option A is an easier thing to get, because it's just planning commission saying, yeah, as a board, as the majority of the board, we feel that this option is still kind of the intention, they still meet the frontage requirement. That's an easier thing to give than someone trying to prove a hardship, if you look at process.
Yeah, so I think if you're good with option A, I mean, but if you really want option B, I don't know, but.
And it's hard for me to see this. The option A is the one with the narrower.
Option A is the 45 all the way back.
I would think that would work the best.
I mean, it looks to me that works the best, and going through all this, and I remember when we first did this, and of course, then new things happen, right? But I just know that I don't have an issue with relief specific to that lot 11 because of the wetland. It's RCE. It's not very common that we allow that on. So I'm fine with it, but my thoughts.
Now, is that strictly a driveway, that 45-foot?
Yeah, just because of building setbacks, you would never be able to put a structure in there, I shouldn't say that. a garden shed could maybe fit in that 45-foot area. I mean, the city could very easily, as a condition of approval, in fact, what we probably would do, just looking at the way the surveyor drew in the pads, it probably wouldn't be uncommon to say the building pad, meaning where you can put structures, would only be in that back area. It's probably, if we were to go the route of the 45, it's probably prudent to say no structures in there just because they would be close to someone else's driveway potentially.
Right.
But that still leaves a large chunk in the back. They could do like an outbuilding if they wanted, if there's space.
Okay, and then say sometime down the line, somebody decides to develop the property to the north. That's going to have no effect on what takes place here.
Yeah, what happens here has no impact on that. And that's another question, and actually, because this drawing's kind of turned, what appears north is actually east, because this is kind of turned. There was some question too, if sometimes the roads need to extend to the service of their lots. That lot being so big and having a lot of access and frontage, and there's a big wooded area, I think, kind of back there, right? It probably wouldn't make sense for a road to ever go through there from this site, so that's why the cul-de-sac stops where it does.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other questions or comments?
So, I mean, I guess just without saying a formal yes, does it sound like the consensus is that you probably would be, consider that reduced access width if they were to proceed with that route?
I would.
With concept A, yes.
And concept A seems to make the most sense.
Yeah, that's practical to me. And I agree with you in restricting a shed or something being built in there is the obvious thing as well.
Yeah, who cares?
All right.
You just room in the back.
Well,
Okay,
there you go.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Resolution 23, 2019, approval of building site and operation plan for Hearing Focused LLC on Janesville Road.
Move to approve.
Second.
And Adam?
Just pull the drawing up here quick. Okay, thanks, Mayor. So yeah, the new business that's proposed here, Hearing Focused, the owner recently purchased a site and is looking at doing an, like basically a hearing clinic, audiology clinic along this Janesville Road location. This property up until now has always been used as a residence. It's zoned commercial. It was a legal non-conforming use. This is located just west of where the new MSP Heritage facility is. There actually would be neighbors. And this site originally, along with the site to the west of it, was the proposed location for MW Marine's new showroom they were going to build a while ago. That kind of fell through just because the boat dealer, the boat vendor that wanted a new showroom didn't want a new showroom anymore, so that's the only reason that never went forward. So this lot then was put back on the market, bought by the applicant that's here tonight. And as part of that, what they're proposing to do is, obviously, they've talked with our building inspectors and will continue to work the inside of the property to meet, commercial code requirements, because it wasn't built that way originally. They're looking at adding a ramp to the front of the building to make sure that it's accessible. And there's some pictures of like wood ramps, that would be an example. They are then looking at adding some paving, not necessarily removing what's there, but kind of adding and supplementing the paving, just to help keep costs reasonable, to add 5 parking stalls, which is what the code requires based upon their use and the amount of practitioners that are there. And they're looking at adding those 5 stalls on the west side of the driveway. The original plan was to try to do it more on the east side of the driveway because of some wetlands on the adjacent lot that made that really difficult, if not impossible. So to try to maximize the existing driveway that's there, they're expanding the driveway to meet our 24 width requirement. So it will meet a normal commercial driveway standard. And then those 5 stalls will be closer to the building. This still allows them, if they wanted to add some more stalls further to the south, closer to Janesville someday, they would have that ability also. Because this area is a little more developed area of Janesville Road, and a lot of the newer developed sites around here have site curb and gutter, the resolution is drafted to require curb and gutter, excuse me, as you see on the drawing, kind of the red marker. So the west side of the drawing and then the east side of the drawing up into where the existing paving is. The reason we kind of stopped the curbing on the east side where we did was because the existing paving that's there is going to just kind of remain. There's really no purpose in ripping it out for no reason. So staff didn't have an issue with them leaving that as is and at least curbing to that front. The resolution states that if that asphalt and concrete that is on that east side of the driveway, if that ever goes away, or if the owner decides when they're paving that maybe those are going to be lost or something, if they are, then the curbing would have to extend all the way up. But at this time, if they leave the parking as is on that side or the paving, they wouldn't have to extend the curbing any farther than shown on the drawing. They are proposing a sign kind of in the central portion of the property up towards the road. And if you look in your packet, there are a couple different kind of sign renderings that the applicant submitted to kind of give you some ideas of what they were looking at as far as kind of general design and color. Staff did not have any issues with any of those proposed signage styles. I mean, obviously, as long as it meets the square footage and the height and things like that, which they seem like they're definitely going to. Any kind of feedback you had on color suggestions, the owner was willing to hear and listen to, but at the staff level, I think any of them could be very suitable. They all look really nice and they're nothing obtrusive or anything like that. They are talking about having like a brick or stone base at the bottom of the sign that would help complement the building too, which is a really nice addition to that area, which is something that the design guides look for, and that is that area also. It's noted that any refuse containers would be stored in the building, so that's not a worry in the garage of the building. And if they would need an outdoor enclosure, they would just have to come to the staff level to get those permits at that time. Other than that, though, staff is recommending approval as proposed, subject to the, things listed in the resolution. I think this would be a nice conversion to the site, and it's glad to see a new business locate in the city.
Thank you, Adam. I think it is a nice addition. Any other questions or comments?
So the paved area on the east side of the property, that's currently paved with asphalt, right?
It is, yeah, and they would have had to expand some of it. Well, one of the areas is over the lot line, so we didn't want to really promote commercial parking when it straddles the lot line.
Okay.
The owners next door didn't have a problem with it, obviously, when they did their development. If there were to be any, repaving there or expansion, they not only can't be that close to the lot line or over it, there's also, like I said, those wetlands. So originally, there was going to be parking on that east side, but because of the expansions that were needed and the proximity to the wetlands, we kind of realized that wasn't really a good fit without having to really move that driveway over. So that's why the parking kind of swapped.
So it's just going to remain paved?
Kind of remain paved, but it won't be marked with marked stalls like the 5 will be. If someone happens to park there, they happen to park there, but we don't want to promote it. And it won't be marked, and hopefully most people want to park closer to the house anyway, the building, say the business, in the marked stalls.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I just have one question and then just a real minor comment. Is there a landscape plan that goes with this or not?
There isn't. We haven't really gotten to the detail of that. It's something that would normally come up more so at the building permit time, even though it's kind of good to think about it now. Usually adjacent to parking areas, we do see some type of landscaping. There is landscaping, some basic landscaping, the terrace along Janesville Road, so we normally wouldn't touch anything in the right of way. They will have to submit landscape plan or on the base of the sign. They kind of talk about some basic details, but we'll need an actual plan. But if the plan commission wants to encourage or suggest anything around parking, this is a good time to do so.
Just to be consistent with other businesses, because we do required of everyone. So.
Yeah, we could do some basic foundation plantings around the perimeter of the parking. There are some trees and stuff that are there now, so it's not like it is a barren site, but especially where the new parking will be, there isn't like any more ground shrubbery, so if that's something we want to add in the resolution, we definitely can. And we could look at that at permitting time then.
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion then, to propose some ground landscape cover at the parking area to work it out with staff essentially to determine what's appropriate there. And then I guess just a comment, the ramp, in order to meet accessibility requirements, the landing at the top of the ramp will have to be larger than the actual ramp proposed. So the landing will at least have to be 5 by 5 at the top, just so the applicant knows that that's something that's out there.
Okay. Yeah, this is kind of just to give us that basic idea. I know that the building inspectors have talked to them, and if they've got to that point or not yet, surely we'll definitely get there, but we'll make a note of that too, just for our files.
Any other discussion? Okay, so now you're going to vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The amendment is approved, and if there's no other discussion, you'll now vote on the resolution as amended. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is approved unanimously. All set.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any miscellaneous business, Adam?
Nothing, Mayor.
Nothing? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. All us older people can't hear anymore, so.
There's no jokes.
We need an
No jokes.
audiologist now.
That's actually very scary, the idea that I'm